What's good, YouTube? Flan Speaks back for another video. I watched recently the Pivot podcast where they had WWE superstar couple Montez Ford and Bianca Belair on there as we getting ready for WrestleMania, which is going to take place this weekend here in my city, Philadelphia, down at the Philadelphia Eagles Lincoln Financial Field. Unfortunately, I was not able to secure tickets for the event myself. I will not be there. However, I'll be checking it out on, I guess it's on Peacock or whatever it's on. I don't know how they're going to go about it. So I guess I'll be checking it out via that way. Now, it was a really good interview. I thought, a lot about their relationship has been revealed kind of already. They've been making rounds. They've been on the Breakfast Club. Pretty much, you see Bianca almost everywhere. And then also they have the Hulu show with them. The reality TV show. I think it's Love and WWE, I believe it's called. I saw some of the episodes of that, so I don't know how much really they can reveal, but it was a good interview. What I was hoping for, though, was more questions surrounding Montez Ford in particular's career. There isn't really much to complain about Bianca's career besides some little stuff that happened at different points in her career that I don't speak a lot on, because I think some of my criticism would go over the heads of some of the people. Not saying people are stupid, but I know that wrestling being theater, and theater has a certain history to it. But for the most part, considering her career versus others' careers, you have to say it's pretty good by WWE standards. People talk about her meteoric rise, which took place over, a 5-year period or something like that this isn't normal. But I would counter with, she isn't really normal. It isn't every time it isn't regular that you get, a lady wrestler who is able to do, body slams, DDTs, superplexes, and suplexes. It's rare. In the women's division, you get that. Like even Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair aren't able to do many of the things that she does. And then coupled with the athleticism, the ability to do the somersaults and the flips that everyone loves, this day and age. She can kind of do it all. She's a tweener, like who combines the athleticism, speed with the strength, and she's not normal. So her meteoric rise, to me, I don't think it's something that she has to show all this gratitude for. It's better for the company to push people who have the capabilities that she has. You see what I mean? But there were two instances that I recall that I thought were ridiculous. The first being the way she was built up in NXT. She was built up to be this heel that was unstoppable, goes on this long winning streak until she goes up against Shayna Baszler and Rhea Ripley. Okay, it was to me, it was disgraceful the way they had to lose to both of those girls, and it just showed the typical WWE formula and nonsense for minorities. Okay. Right, you'll be great. You'll defeat people that we don't care about, but for certain people that we deemed to be the goddesses of this joint, you're not going to beat them. You got to be under them. And the one they were pushing at the time was Shayna Baszler, because she has the MMA background. She looks like what she looks like, but as we see, Baszler is suffering now at the next level because they know looks matter. I hate to say that, but Shayna Baszler is just not cute enough to be champion right now. So that's really what's happening with her. Rhea Ripley, I have no real complaints about her. I get the push for Rhea Ripley. I didn't at the time in NXT, but now after she's been paired with Judgment Day, and you kind of got to see what she can do. I believe she's one of the better women's champions probably that they've had in a lot of years. Okay, I put her over any of Charlotte's runs, and I put her over Becky Lynch for sure's runs. All right. But with Bianca Belair, ever since she's came to the main roster, her record is very good. Okay, but before she came up to the main roster, they did the most disgraceful and egregious thing I've seen. Is when they had Charlotte Flair go down into NXT and just pretty much destroy her. All right, after building her up, they just destroyed her. And the way they justify it is they say, well, once you get to the main roster, they pretend as if these two people have never wrestled. When, that's fine if you want to do this fake storyline stuff, but the reality is it did happen and people did see it. And I understand what they were doing. You see, Charlotte Flair represents in the company what they're trying to push. She represents what's called the Mother Goddess. All right? And Becky Lynch represents the Warrior Goddess. Okay, this is just the way they push them. Like anyone who understands that the mystery systems and so on, they know that this is the reality of what the positions that they hold, in the company. All right. Same thing with The Rock. Like they push certain people to godlike status. I know Rock is the Brahma Bull, but now you see he's the final boss, and then he has the bull with the horns. All right, the bull with the horns is just Baal. Okay, that's an old ancient Canaanite god that was worshipped by people, right? So that's the status that Rock has now. He's being pushed as a godlike figure. Okay, so and Cody Rhodes is being pushed as the Adonis. Okay, he's the blonde-haired guy that has to overcome the evil Baal. That's what's being pushed here, right? At any rate, Bianca Belair, of course, had to go up against, she had this nice run where they had her beat Bayley. Okay? Bayley is different. Bayley is more of like the Athena, you see. More of like, just the princess that is of love and of such and such. Because at that time, they were pushing her as this face, who all the kids loved and so on. Now, what they wanted to do is allow Bianca Belair to do that. Okay? That's why they turned Bayley heel. Put Bianca Belair as the one that now has the children that she's being pushed in. She also came kind of at the right time, right? When you got all the different movements going on about representation and so on. It was a perfect time and a perfect storm to push up Bianca Belair. And this is not to say that any of these people are not qualified based off of their talent. I'm not saying they're being pushed just for an agenda. I don't believe in just agenda-driven things because that stuff doesn't make money. Okay, what makes money is you have to have the talent go along with the timing, and that's the perfect storm. Same thing that happened with Hulk Hogan back in the 80s. He was an attraction, he was a talent, but it was coupled with the time. It was just the right time in the 80s. Now, the reason why I don't have a problem, you got to understand, with Bianca Belair necessarily losing to Charlotte Flair, but what they did was they made it look like she wasn't even on her level. She just completely destroyed her. All right. And then with Becky Lynch defeats her in 26 seconds. And it was basically just a knockout punch. Okay. These are the ways that they kind of work you into what they're doing. All right. It's like, sure, they'll give you the belt later. They'll give you this run later. They'll give you everything she's getting now. But the sacrifice she had to make was for her character to get destroyed by the Mother Goddess and then to get knocked out by the Warrior Goddess. Okay, that's what they had to do. And that's what they did. That's what she went through. Okay, so on and so forth. Boom. Now, the guy that I really want to talk about is a person that's really being done dirty in the business. And that is Montez Ford. Right? I think we could all agree, pretty much all WWE fans would agree, that if you look at just sheer talent, if you look at just sheer imagery, Montez Ford is one of the most talented, one of the biggest talents in the WWE universe. One of the biggest talents. Now, I believe what's happening is he's suffering from being pushed improperly and being underutilized. And this is partly on the part of creative, who are only able to see certain types of people in certain types of roles. One of the problems WWE faces as far as creatively is concerned, and hopefully some of this changes, when you have people like The Rock that's going to be more involved in things and so on. But what you have is the black male what's considered believable and how can he actually be seen? Montez Ford is very talented athletically. He's probably the most athletic guy they have on the roster, besides maybe a Ricochet and some other guys you can add in there, AJ Styles, etc. He has the look, right? He's definitely like considered handsome to women. Okay, he's articulate as hell, actually. Right? He doesn't always do the best, like on the microphone all the time, and it's not because he is inarticulate. It's because of what he has to work with, the opponents he's up against, right? And then also, he's not sure if he wants to be a goofball, if he wants to be cool, if he wants to be a gangster. We're not sure. One thing we do see about Montez Ford, though, is that if you look at the way he was raised very well with a mother in a very loving household, very religious household. He did not run the streets. He was not part of that sort of thing. So it makes you wonder, why would Montez Ford be part of a group that is named the Street Profits? As if he's a street guy. As if he really is about that life somehow, when really he's far from it. So they're asking a guy to play a role that has nothing to do with the type of person that he is. This is very difficult. It's kind of easier for Bianca Belair because Bianca Belair is kind of pushed as the athlete that's from Tennessee, or that's from, it was the star collegiate athlete. All right. And it's easy for her to do that because that is really what she is. It really is what she is. And what's being emphasized is, okay, I'm the strongest, I'm the fastest, and so on. And that works because she really is, like, she can prove that she's those things. Whereas for Montez Ford, he's kind of being asked to play a role that that ain't him. He doesn't fit that role. Now, what I found interesting is that Montez Ford actually has a military background. He's a guy that is very meticulous about how he dresses, how he presents himself, how he talks, how he walks, all of those different things. And for me, honestly, I think there's a whole world that they can explore with him in the area of creative. If you guys watch wrestling, for all of you who watched wrestling back in the late 80s and early 90s, you'll remember a wrestler named Curt Hennig, who was Mr. Perfect. Mr. Perfect. That was one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I think he's like underrated. Curt Hennig, from what I remember, he started out in, I believe it was UHF, if I'm not mistaken, and some other wrestling leagues, maybe AWA. Don't quote me on that, but he started out as just Curt Hennig, and he was all right. He got the look, had the athleticism, had some moves, pretty good. But then when he got to WWE, and Vince let him really explore this Mr. Perfect persona, that's when he really took off. You see, Montez Ford right now, what I see him is, right now I don't see him as the main headliner, main card guy yet. I don't see him as like he'll be like a Roman Reigns or even like a Cody or someone. He can definitely reach that level, but a Cody or CM Punk yet. I see the potential there. But what I think the proper way to build him up is to give him a great either U.S. Championship run or Intercontinental Championship run. He should have one of those belts. And his persona just has to change into something similar to Mr. Perfect. Because you could play that up with him. His look, his in-ring style, the crispness of his wrestling. Dude is nice. His athleticism, all of those different things. He can actually put a suit on and go with the whole thing. I wear Louis Vuitton. I wear Salvatore Ferragamo shoes. I wear Gucci this. I can do that. Right? And I got the military background. I'm straight laced. I'm so on. Of course, he couldn't play Sergeant Slaughter because not enough like what you call middle Americans would see a black man in that way. They just don't see a black man in the way that a Sergeant Slaughter is, even though there are black sergeants and majors and so on. And then the black community wouldn't accept him if he went that route, the Sergeant Slaughter route. Like often there's just a big segment of us that sees that as coonery, okay? But what he could do is play like a Mr. Perfect type role. Smooth, right? Dressed to the T. I can do everything. Say with Mr. Perfect, I remember they had this segment where he went out there and he was bowling and he hits a strike. Then he goes, he shoots a basketball and he makes a 3-pointer. Then he goes and he dives, I think, off of a diving board, and there's a perfect 10. Like, they did everything to like a Mr. Perfect. And that's the way they should go with Montez Ford, something like that. Because I think he can get on the mic and talk trash. I believe he'd be good at that. And move him away from some of this goofy persona, this Joker persona. Because it's hard to take those guys seriously as in-ring competitors when they're always joking. Right? And I'm tired of like black talent having to be jokesters in order to not be considered threatening or in order to be seen as a face. Right? Whereas Hulk Hogan wasn't considered a jokester, but he was a face. Ultimate Warrior wasn't considered a jokester, but he was a face. Dusty Rhodes wasn't considered a jokester, but he was a face. The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin. They don't have to be jokesters. Like, they can have moments of humor, but nobody would look at Stone Cold Steve Austin and say, no, that's a goofball or that's a jokester. Nobody would look at Booker T and say, that's a goofball and that's a jokester. And that's what was needed for Montez Ford. Right now, I think everybody recognizes his talent, but you have a segment of the fan base that doesn't take him seriously because they've only seen him like as a jokester. And then you got the other segment of the fan base that just might not relate at all. But everyone, I think his talent is undeniable. You could look at, and I think the most egregious thing is that a guy like Logan Paul has a belt before a Montez Ford. And Logan Paul to me is nothing but a knockoff Montez Ford, just a white boy version of Montez Ford. Blonde hair, blue eye version of Montez Ford. That's all he is. Now I get he came in off of being a popular social media person, so he already has a bit of a fan base. I get that he's a great heel. That I will not deny. The guy knows how to piss people off and how to get people to hate him. That I will give him credit for. However, I don't think Montez Ford was ever given the opportunity to see what he can do if he's without Dawkins, number one, and he's able to just kind of like take his personality and maybe even go heel with it. I think he's the one that needs a heel turn. Whereas Bianca Belair, I don't think so. I know a lot of people believe that she needs a heel turn. I vehemently disagree with those people who say that. I don't think so. Not right now anyway. Maybe eventually. But right now, her remembering what Bayley did for over a couple of years to her, coupled with Damage Control, makes sense. Why would she all of a sudden want to just support Bayley or trust Bayley without Bayley proving herself? Like, how many people in the world do that? Okay? That makes sense to me. But the heel turn I can see if she goes with Jade Cargill and goes heel that way. But that won't happen right away, you see. There has to be more. For her or Jade Cargill to be heel, more has to happen. Right now, Damage Control is the heel faction. Albeit a bad heel faction, and many Damage Control fans don't understand. They're talking about, oh my God, Damage Control keeps losing. And they Damage Control are not a good heel faction. Let me say it again. Damage Control is not a good heel faction. Right? A good heel faction right now is, for example, Judgment Day. They're a good heel faction. Damage Control, they need a mouthpiece for them, which Bayley was for a long time. Now, which Dakota Kai is trying to do, is filling in for right now. But as a whole, they're not a good heel faction. Because they can't even get on the mic and brag. They finally decided to offer a translation of what EO says, and that was some of the best stuff they've done. But by and large, they're going to lose because they're just going to be outshined. And to a certain degree, the company can only do but so much to put you over and to make you something and try to force things. that aren't there. There's just a responsibility on the part of the talent to have to, push themselves and help themselves to a degree. Most of it is going to have to be them helping themselves. Now with Montez Ford, like, I see a guy who has the potential to be a Chris Jericho, or one of those types of guys. I see it. I don't know. That's where I am with it, man. But tell me what you guys think.